League winners is always a term thrown around by the fantasy football community. This player is going to be a league winner. You need to draft this guy here because he's going to win you your fantasy football leagues. But where do you get league-winning talent is the question. And the answer, simply, even though it's not a very good answer, is all over the draft board. But instead of the clear and obvious, Jamar Chase can win you your fantasy football league video, because that really doesn't do anything for the other 11 players in your fantasy football leagues, I have gone over on Underdog every single player's ADP and have found at each position my favorite value that I love to draft an Underdog right now. So let's roll the intro. Let's start at the quarterback position. And starting there, we have CJ Stroud as the first mid to late round gem that I love at his ADP. If you watched the videos I made on this channel a year ago, and even if I could get more specific, one of the first videos I made on this channel was that we were drafting CJ Stroud way too high in fantasy in 2024. And I'm honestly glad I made that video. I'm glad I had the thought and the idea behind kind of pushing and poking holes at the idea that we should be drafting CJ Stroud after the first 5 quarterbacks in fantasy. Like, I just could never get behind that. And now fast forward a year later, a year full of plenty of drafters that want nothing to do with him after how bad he was for them last year. You can get CJ Stroud now at QB 20, and I just think that's way too good of a deal to pass up. He was, a year ago, somebody that was a little too highly drafted, and now this year, I feel like he's being somewhat underdrafted to kind of overcorrect how disappointing 2024 was. And I'm all in on that kind of concept. I truly believe that somewhere in between the rookie season and sophomore season of CJ Stroud, right in between there is going to be the level of production we get out of him. And if that is true, then taking him at QB 20 is a no-brainer, must-pick, easy return on investment. And if you really think about it and look at all the names in front of CJ Stroud, some of them can actually be a little head-scratching. Why is Justin Fields and Kyler Murray definitively going rounds and rounds ahead of CJ Stroud, who has probably just the same amount of range of outcomes to sneak into top 10 or float around top 12, or the latter, be pretty bad? I like a lot of quarterbacks in that QB2 tier. I just think CJ Stroud at QB 20 is the best of that QB2 value at the end of your drafts. But guys like Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, even Justin Herbert are great values as well in this point of the draft. And if you don't like CJ Stroud, or I'm not convincing enough on my CJ Stroud points, then one of those veteran quarterbacks can easily get you the job done at their ADP. You may not at first glance like the idea of taking one of those 3 quarterbacks, but like it or not, the truth is, including CJ Stroud as well, all of these guys at their ADP are being drafted too low and have proven in the past to be QB1 capable at some point. On to the next one, the running back spot. This is my favorite value to draft right now on Underdog, and that's Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders. If, again, you did watch my videos last year, this was a guy that I was very adamant about pushing into the RB2 territory. I was wrong about that. I'm not ashamed to admit that whatsoever. But, let alone the same things this year in 2025, he's still being drafted at a discount. He is the RB30 on Underdog right now. And to me, he really feels like the end of the tier break to when we go to some of the guys that are backups or guys that play limited opportunities. I may not be as high on Brian Robinson Jr. as I was a year ago, but to think that a back-end RB2 season is out of the range of possibilities is crazy to think. It's still on the table for Brian Robinson Jr. When I was diving in and looking more into Brian Robinson Jr.'s stats, it almost feels like a tale of 2 seasons. In the beginning of the season when everything was clicking, and I don't know if this is an attribute to teams in the NFL figuring out Brian Robinson Jr. as the season went on, or this was about the same time where Jayden Daniels did injure his ribs and that level of play wasn't really, I don't want to say the same from Jaden Daniels because he started to plateau again in the playoffs, but Jaden Daniels was a lot better the first 7-8 weeks of the season than he was after that. And the same shows in Brian Robinson's stat lines and game logs as well. This was a player that was on pace to tear up the league and then kind of hit a wall halfway through the season. So I have seen, yes, it's a small sample size. I've seen a sample size that I think is big enough to trust that at RB30, I can proclaim that Brian Robinson Jr. is a value yet again in fantasy football, and we should be drafting him up. So this one's a little bit more of a cop-out. But at wide receiver, you're just going to want to take any of your favorite year 2 wide receiver because they're all of value. Well, after Ladd McConkey at least. The Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey tier, you need like one of the first 15 picks in your draft to get one of those guys. So we're not talking about those players specifically. We're talking more so, hey, we could even throw Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name in this list. But guys like Keon Coleman, Rome Odunze, and even somebody that I've been really high on all offseason, Xavier Legette of the Carolina Panthers. I personally never like to follow the pack blindly, and right now the pack in the fantasy football community is standing behind Keon Coleman's breakout year 2 season, and I totally understand all of the points made. We thought Keon Coleman would have a good rookie season as well, and that didn't happen. So I'm not going to be the one to say buy in and push the chips on Keon Coleman, but what I will tell you is he is a value where you're drafting him. An even better draft value would be Xavier Legette. Legette is the wide receiver 65, so with one of your last round draft picks, it's safe to assume that Xavier Legette can't lose you your draft if you draft him at his ADP. Sure, if you took him in the 7th round, yeah, that could lose you your league. There is no way that pick could lose you your draft on draft night, but that could win you your league, and that has some meaning to it. Another reason why I prefer the idea of drafting Xavier Legette over Keon Coleman, regardless of ADP, is the fact that I think Carolina, and I even said this last year, is going to take a step up and improve as a football team. And I think that starts with the quarterback. I think that starts with the development of the wide receivers. I think that also continues with first-round pick Ted McMillan. And I think we're just going to see a team that's actually not horrible. I'm not going to say make the playoffs. The division's bad enough that they actually could fight for the division, as crazy as that sounds. But before I even get ahead of myself with that, Xavier Legette as a number 2 in Carolina's offense may be just as impactful or productive in fantasy as Keon Coleman, the number 1 wide receiver if he passes Khalil Shakir at that. So number 2 or even number 1 wide receiver in a run-heavy offense where Josh Allen and James Cook get a lot of volume. But I do like Keon Coleman. If you are somebody that wants to draft him, I'm totally fine by that. It's a 9th round ADP price tag. Again, maybe that one could lose you your league if all things really went bad and nobody else on your team hit. But that 9th round pick could also be a league winner, so it's worth its upside. But I just think if you missed out on Ladd, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., if you wanted to get that more expensive price tag guy that wasn't Xavier Legette, why not just go Rome Odunze? And to let you in on a little insider secret on Underdog, Rome Odunze's ADP is going down. So he's going later in drafts, while this hype on Keon Coleman is soaring through the roof. So while everybody's trying to buy the hot new item, let's buy the dip. Let's go ahead. Let's grab our shares of Rome Odunze. Let's buy into that because, yeah, I made a video about DJ Moore, but what if that don't pop off? What if Rome Odunze is the guy? Now we got him. So with that, pick your favorite year 2 wide receiver. If you even want to throw in the idea of taking Ricky Pearsall, think that's a good value. We don't know how healthy Brandon Ayuk is going to be going into the 2025 season, so that's another potential idea of a good dart throw at the end of your drafts. So at wide receiver, you pick your poison. You pick your favorite year 2 player. Could be Rome, could be Keon Coleman, could be Xavier Legette, could be Ricky Pearsall. Mine is going to be Xavier Legette, but that's for you at home to decide who you like the best. And comment down below who you prefer the most out of that year 2 group. Lastly, the tight end position. The absolute value to be had on Underdog right now is Isaiah Likely, coming in at the tight end 16 on Underdog. Isaiah Likely is actually another guy like Odunze falling in drafts, and we need to be taking advantage of whatever the market gives us or whatever draft day or the draft board provides us. Right now, he's being provided at an even lower cost, tight end 16, and I think it's just a great value. We've seen splits of Isaiah Likely with and without Mark Andrews, and without Mark Andrews, he's a must-start tight end. What we know about Mark Andrews is that he has health concerns and does miss games throughout the course of a full season, and he was healthy all of last season. So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions, but we're kind of thinking the same thing here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to overreact to, he dropped a 2-point conversion in the playoffs, he's going to lose his job, Mark Andrews. No, it's likely, and I don't even mean to put a pun on that this tight end room could change this season in 2025. It could be the emergence of Isaiah Likely. We all thought it was going to happen last year. We were all set in stone that Mark Andrews was out and Isaiah Likely was in. And then what happened? Mark Andrews took over. It's as simple as maybe Mark Andrews doesn't score that many touchdowns this year. Maybe it's Isaiah Likely's year. And if you do get Mark Andrews to play every single game this season again, Isaiah Likely is still productive even with him in the lineup. So it doesn't even matter if he's there or not. He's just a great budget tight end. There's really no difference in, if you don't get one of the elite guys, why you shouldn't be taking an Isaiah Likely later in your drafts than, I don't know, trying to be the first one to say, like, I got Jonnu Smith before he was drafted, or whatever the case may be. And even if you miss out on Isaiah Likely, Jake Ferguson is the tight end 17 going right after for the Dallas Cowboys. And now, I know the Dallas Cowboys are not really a team we want to invest all that much in because, like, there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty. But one thing we do know is Dak Prescott makes starting fantasy tight ends. We did this 2 years ago when we even said Jake Ferguson would be a top 10 tight end, and spoiler alert, he was 2 years ago. Dak is never going to stop throwing to the tight end position. If he's healthy, he's going to make him a starting tight end. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. We went over my favorite quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end values right now in fantasy. And we just hit July. Are you kidding me? We're just pumping out the content on this channel. I mean, I've got a whole catalog of sleepers, and it literally just turned July. I feel like you're going to probably want to subscribe for that, because July's not even over, and we still have all of August to talk about our fantasy football sleepers. My name is Turtle. This is Outlier Fantasy, and I'll see you in the next video. Wow, you stuck to the end of this video? Thank you so much. If you're new here, make sure you check out one of these videos on the screen right now. And don't forget, before you leave, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any fantasy football videos on this channel. And that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you in the next one.